Season 3 has been out for a couple of days now, and we haven't talked about the patch notes yet, so I think it's high time that we get into it. We've had a lot of time to explore the map, explore the new weapons, the new meta changes, and everything in between, and there's a lot going on here, so let's dive in, shall we? First on the menu, we're going to go right down the list of our patch notes. There have been some changes to the gold armor items in the game. So gold body armor, gold backpack in particular have received some changes, and honestly, these are much, much better for the game as a whole. So, for starters, back in Season 1 and 2, gold body armor had what was called the Executioner perk. So if you were to execute an enemy that was downed on the ground, you would fully restore your shields. This has been removed from the body armor because it was a perk that was effectively never used for the most part, and it's now baseline on all legends, so this is a bonus that any legend at any time can achieve. If you execute an enemy, you're going to get your full bar of shield back no matter what. This is going to be super cool for Gibraltar in particular, I feel, because he's going to be able to throw a dome shield on an enemy and get that safe execution off, and just do a lot of really cool stuff with that. I mean, other legends and situations will come up sparingly, but I think that the best way to make this consistent is with Gibraltar, of all characters. Naturally, we should talk about the gold backpack next. This has been changed as well, so it is no longer using the fast heal perk. That has been moved over to gold body armor. But first, backpack. So this is now going to allow you to revive teammates with a lot of extra health and shields. I believe 75 health and 50 shields if I'm not mistaken. So that's a big, huge change, and that makes Lifeline in particular super interesting as a pick now. Well, I guess maybe it's not good enough to influence you in picking more Lifeline, but if you happen to find a gold backpack and you happen to have a Lifeline on your team, putting it on her is probably a really, really smart idea. You get that safe revive and extra health on your teammates as well. Again, Gibraltar is also an excellent target for this golden backpack now because he can drop that dome shield. Again, pretty safe revives in a lot of situations, or at least safer than normal. Gold body armor is now going to be using that fast heal perk. So this is really interesting, and I think a super healthy change for the game, because previously, gold body armor was like nothing special at all. You happen to get it and you just never cared. You would never get the Executioner perk off. It was just a purple armor with extra steps, and that's it. So now what you get from this instead is that fast heal. But the critical thing, and point B, I suppose, is that when you shoot an opponent with gold armor, now you know that they have fast heal, whereas previously if someone had a gold backpack, you have no idea. It's always a guess, and you get surprised by a guy who, you shredded 100 damage into, their armor is down, and then 2 seconds later they've popped a shield battery, and they're back to full again, and it's like you've committed to a fight where you should have won, and you had no way of knowing that it was a bad idea to commit, and that whole metagame is gone. If you see gold armor, that's fast heal, and now it's just a one-to-one relation of whether or not you know it's time to push or not to push, and it's going to influence the way you play in a really strong way. So good change, positive for the game, big fan. I'm sure everyone listening to this is super happy about it. Next up, we got Gibraltar, who is becoming very quickly like my favorite legend to play. It seems so weird coming from me, of all people, if you've watched me back in Titanfall 1 and 2, being like the speedy kind of person where I really like doing the bunny hopping and wall jumping and stuff to make yourself go as fast as possible, and I'm always touting like tiny hitboxes, this and that, yada yada, but man, like something about Gibraltar since day one, even when he wasn't the best, has been super fun to me. I really like the gameplay that he provides, and I think in a slow game like this, I mean, like slow is relative, like compared to Titanfall where I come from, this is slow, but compared to other BRs, this is like the fastest one out there, so this is all relative, but either way, I very much like the way Gibraltar plays, and he's getting more and more and more buffs, and I'm getting really excited about it. It's getting to the point where I just want to play Gibraltar all the time, so let's talk about him. First up, let's have a look at Dome Shield. So, if you're in the Dome Shield and you're using a healing item, it will go 25% faster. In the patch note, it does not say teammates or allies, so it might stand to reason that if you're in an enemy's Dome Shield, your healing items will still go faster. I cannot confirm that yet. I have not been lucky enough to run into an enemy Gibraltar shield and attempt to heal myself. If I happen to find an answer to that expediently, or if you guys happen to know the answer, please leave it in the comments below, because I certainly just don't know that right now. But either way, Next up, we have an increased throw distance of about 60%, which is a really big deal. The first couple of times I played Gibraltar, it actually messed me up a whole lot because I was used to aiming my aim like a good 45 degrees in the sky in order to arc that dome shield at the max possible distance, and now I consistently find myself chucking this thing way too far. So a little bit of muscle memory changes here, but overall this is a great thing. Gibraltar really will use this to excellent effect. You can actually throw your dome shield from your piece of cover to an ally who is down that's decently far away from you and actually defend them. And if it doesn't reach, they can still crawl their way in and oftentimes be decently okay. So like, this is a great change for Gibraltar. Makes him a much better team player, a much better defensive legend like he's kind of supposed to be. So A+ job on that. To counteract all these buffs though, your cooldown for the dome shield did go from 20 to 30 seconds. I honestly do feel this change. It is a little frustrating with my muscle memory because that's a big difference, and I find myself reaching for the dome shield in a lot of situations back to back to back, or rather, you know, I would used to use it back to back to back, and now I can't as much, and it's really messing with like my internal timings, right? Because I kind of know once I drop the dome shield, I have X amount of time before I can do it again, and like sure I could look down at my indicator on my UI and that will tell me how much longer, but it's not really about that. It's more about I have built a muscle memory, and it's really tough for me to readjust that. You know, in the middle of a fight, I'm not thinking of, like, to look down at my UI. I'm busy fighting, listening for what's happening around me, looking at my map, looking at my teammates, looking at 8 other things. Is it kind of my fault I'm not looking at the UI? Sure, but it's definitely something that I feel, and if you're a Gibraltar main out there, you're going to feel it too, so be aware. Next up, we got Defensive Bombardment, the ultimate. Your cooldown has been reduced significantly, so now it's no longer a 4.5 minute cooldown, it's a 3 minute cooldown. So this charges up way more quickly, and if you use ultimate accelerants on this guy, which by the way have been buffed from 20 to 35%, we'll talk more about that later, you're getting a lot of progress in this ult. You can use it a lot more frequently than you used to, which is really, really cool. Now, I do also have to note that there was a nerf inside of this as well to kind of balance it a little bit. Your duration goes from 8 seconds down to 6. So it's not going to deny an area for as long as it used to, but in general, you're going to be able to use it more than like twice per game, and it's going to be pretty solid. Like, you're going to be able to secure kills and just basically tell a team, no, you may not revive this person on a much more frequent basis. So that's going to make Gibraltar overall a lot more combat viable. Although it does nerf his, I guess, defensive status a little bit, but I think the dome shield buffs and the healing buffs more than make up for that trade. You also have an increased throw distance by about 36% according to the patch notes. I haven't really noticed it too much, but I haven't thrown many ults yet either, because in most situations I'm either blasting through a team without needing it or dying before being able to reach for it. So it's still too early on in this patch for me to really like get a feel for this and really say how impactful it is. But hey, this is a stat where more is better always, so can't complain, right? Next up, we have some quality of life changes for Bloodhound. I don't think this is going to be enough to make them super viable or playable at a high level, but it's more steps in the right direction. Bloodhound has been consistently like the most buffed legend, so we'll see what keeps happening in future patches, but every step with this legend is a step in the right direction. They're being very slow with how they tune this legend's power knob, so we'll see what happens in a couple of patches, but for now, we do have some buffs. I have the Allfather, which is your tactical ability, now activates more quickly, so you're not in that little wrist animation for nearly as long. It's been reduced by 33%, so that's very, very good. You also are immediately told on your UI how many targets were pinged, because previously how it would work is like you would ping and you would see the wall hack, but it would be like thinking and calculating for a second before telling you how many you got, and it's like there's no real reason mechanically for that delay to be there. It's just some stylistic thing that an artist thought was cool, and that's fine if you're playing like a single-player game, but in a competitive multiplayer shooter like this, that delay didn't make any sense. So now it's instant, and it's a great boon to all 3 Bloodhound mains out there. So really, really cool. Next up, we have buffs to Beast of the Hunt, your ultimate. So now you're FOV scaling your field of view, whether you'd use 70 degrees, 80 degrees, 110 degrees, whatever your number may be. There used to be an issue where your ADS aim sensitivity got messed up while you were in that ultimate. I would complain about that all the time, as do many other people on the internet. I know that X Factor was a huge whiner about this, rightfully so, mind you. So happy to see this finally cleaned up. You're also going to see this cleaned up on Octane because his field of view would change when using his adrenaline boost. So both of those things have been rectified finally, which is a great benefit to both those legends. The animation time of activating Bloodhound's ult was actually reduced by 30%. So again, really good. That was just a long animation of you roaring for no reason. And like, sure, it's cool, sure, it's thematic, but made the legend a whole lot harder to play, a whole lot less versatile. It got to the point where you needed to be activating that thing in cover before you even started fighting an enemy team. And when you do that, you immediately advertise your presence, you lose the drop, you lose the surprise, and like, there kind of wasn't even any point in activating it at all. You also get a movement speed bonus from 25 to 30%, so little things, little tune-ups. I think Bloodhound still needs more to become even remotely viable beyond, like, you know, high gold, low plat. But we'll see what happens in the coming months. Next up, real quick, we have Bangalore. Her Rolling Thunder ultimate had its damage doubled from 20 to 40 per bomb. This is kind of a big who cares. Your damage is basically going from 0 to 0. I mean, unless they really increase the damage and make this way more dangerous or make it detonate more quickly, I mean, it really just doesn't care. It doesn't do enough damage for you to really care about it. Like, now the shell shock does last pretty long, which I think is the main thing here, is that, you know, if you get hit by any of the damage, you're shell shocked for a very long time. That's the main draw of the ultimate. Making it do 20 more damage, I think, is pretty irrelevant. Like, it's fine. It helps you to do Bangalore ultimate challenges where you have to deal 100 damage, so now, like, it's actually achievable. But I don't think that at the end of the day, this really matters. Next up, we have some minor Wraith nerfs. Looks like, according to the notes here, Respawn is saying that they've pulled back additional nerfs for further testing, but Wraith's power balance is on their radar, yada yada. I mean, there's definitely some more Wraith stuff that needs to be looked at, but for now, Dimensional Rift will no longer deploy if you're down before placing it. So previously, if you activate your ult, you place portal number 1, and then you get downed, portal number 2 would just be placed right there where you landed, and then you could step out of it, step back in, teleport away, or whatever. So now that has been removed. If you are knocked down while in your ultimate, then I would imagine, I haven't seen this personally yet, I would imagine it just goes away, it doesn't finish deploying, and it, I would imagine, probably does not consume your ultimate charge. So that's a good change there. Pathfinder received very similar changes to his grapple, although these are not listed in the patch notes. This change did happen, where if you are downed mid-grapple, your grapple no longer stays attached. It immediately disconnects. Now, I've only had this happen to me once so far, so I'm not entirely sure if you maintain momentum or if you also have your momentum broken when your grapple breaks. I'm not sure which way it goes. Again, only happened to me once in like 3 days of playing so far, so not sure on that front yet, but that is a thing that's not in the patch notes that's really important for this character. There's also a grapple projectile velocity nerf, so this will negatively impact your muscle memory for playing Pathfinder. When you shoot your grapple, it'll travel from your hand to the wall or whatever you're looking at 33% more slowly. So that means you need to jump just a little bit later to get that perfect, you know, arc through the air and get that perfect start off your grapple. Not a huge deal. Will take you a day or two to get used to, but it is a thing to be aware of now. I was apparently misinformed at the recording event in LA last week where the devs were even unsure themselves because, I mean, balance is always just so in flux there. It's hard to keep it straight. So, like, you know, no shade thrown at them, but they thought that there was also a change where the speed at which Pathfinder was pulled into the grapple was slowed down. I guess that's something they were playing with, but seems not to have made it into live. So that's also worth noting as well. That is something that Respawn was looking at and may look at again in the future. Also, real quick, there is a zipline cooldown increase. I mean, no big deal. I barely even felt it. It's not often that I would be firing ziplines right on cooldown anyways, so, like, the nerf is not very much felt by me personally, but maybe other people will. Who knows? Next up, we have some weapon changes. These are going to be pretty much the end of what we're talking about is all the weapons, so I'm not going to go into, like, all the little quality of life changes and little things. We're just going to talk major points here. So, weapons are up next. First up, R99 got a base mag size reduction. So the standard magazine with no attachment is still at 18, but you're losing like 2 or 3 rounds from your white, blue, and purple mags. So your maximum at fully perped magazine is going to be 27 as opposed to 30. So just be aware, it's a very tiny change, but I don't think it's that huge of a deal. There was also some recoil randomness added to some of the spray patterns for this gun. Reddit is freaking out about this change, and I understand where the frustration comes from. Like, in my soul, it kind of burns me too that there is more RNG in your sprays, but this is a thing that has always been in Apex from day one. Your guns will have a predetermined spray pattern where they will go and follow a certain line that a developer has drawn, but there also has always been a little bit of variance within that. There's also always been a little bit of random sway, some random play, a little bit of extra recoil left or right or up or down or whatever that is present within that line that's been drawn. So it's never been 100% perfect for most weapons. This is just a small increase to that randomness, and if you're playing at close range where the R99 is supposed to be used, you're almost certainly not going to feel it. You're almost certainly not going to have any issues with that. If you start blaming the minor recoil increase over anything else at your close range fights, it might be more on you than the gun, most likely. And even if it's not, you cannot scientifically prove one way or the other if it is. So, like, you shouldn't really care about it. What this really does noticeably change and noticeably negatively affect is trying to use the R99 at, like, past 100, 200 meters, trying to just one-shot and tap people from super long ranges. It's not what this gun's intended to do. It's not supposed to be good at it. Like, you need to really control your rate of fire and really hit your single shots, your single taps, if you want to have a chance of hitting stuff even remotely consistently. And, like, even then the damage is not great. So this just makes that long-range stuff less useful, less consistent. This is a super high-level player, like Diamond and Apex Legend level player nerf. This is not a Jimmy and Gold 3 nerf. It's just not going to make a difference for the average player. Call it a hot take, call me a jerk, but I don't think it's really going to affect you if you're, you know, average or even slightly above average. I think only the pros are going to feel it, and even then, it's not going to change the usage percentages of the R99. It's still going to be the top dog of all close-range weapons besides, like, a Peacekeeper, or even now, like, a double-tap EVA is also going to be pretty good. And honestly, if no one ever told me this change happened, I strongly doubt I ever could have told you that I noticed a change that happened. So take that for what it's worth. The same change for the R99 happened to the Prowler. So again, a little bit more randomness when you're firing in full auto. Not a big deal in my opinion. Longbow DMR has been, for the most part, returned to its launch balance. The leg damage multiplier was dropped from 0.9 to 0.8. I don't know what it was at launch, unfortunately, sorry to say, but rate of fire is back to the launch rate of fire. Leg damage, who really cares? It's leg damage. If you didn't hit your body shot, you should be punished with a little bit of damage loss. So overall, I mean, DMR is still fine. It got a minor headshot damage bonus because Skull Piercer was removed. So before it was like 2.0 and then 2.25 with Skull Piercer or something like that. Now it's 2.15 with a headshot. So it's still going to be plenty strong if you can hit those heads. I doubt you're going to feel much of a difference there, but the rate of fire is just going to bring the gun away from being super crazy and just properly balanced. Next up, what is probably the largest and most important buff of this entire update, the G7 Scout has been increased from 30 to 34 damage per shot. This is actually really huge. This is going to mean that in those early game fights where no one has armor, it's going to be a 3-shot down anywhere on the body. Well, I don't know the leg multiplier, but to the torso, it's going to be 3 to the torso, probably 3 to the torso, 1 to the leg is probably going to, or I'm sorry, 2 to the torso, 1 to the leg is going to be most likely okay as well. G7 Scout got a very good buff. It's very strong now. This is kind of what it really needed to even be like somewhat useful, I think. It's strong, especially with double tap. G7's worth picking up now. I think the AD strafing speed stuff that I always harp on with sniper rifles is less important on this map because the map is just so stinking huge. But we'll see given time, especially on PC, with how oppressive the charge rifle is and, you know, whether or not the insanity that is that gun makes the G7 somewhat irrelevant in those one-on-one head-on fights. We'll have to wait and see. Next up, we have a gun that, I'll be honest, I'm a little salty about the changes to, but that's okay. We're going to still talk about it anyways. Hemlock. Your base damage for every bullet has gone up from 18 to 22. This means that 3 bursts to the torso with no misses is going to deal, I believe, 198 damage. So you're going to be just shy of downing someone with 3 bursts. So if you have any teammate that just, like, breathes in your opponent's general direction, You're going to down them. If one of your 9 hits, assuming perfect accuracy is a headshot, you're going to down somebody. Assuming they're not, Gibraltar or caustic, things change there, but, whatever, who cares, right? So 4 bursts, let's say, for pretty much anyone, or 3 on a small hitbox character with the low profile debuff. The burst fire hemlock, I mean, that's pretty good damage, right? I mean, your rate of fire is reduced, so your times to kill haven't changed too much. So they're really trying to force the hemlock into the burst fire role with this change, and I understand why they're wanting to do that. The single fire has been nerfed into the ground. It is basically only meant there to be a resource in super long range fights now, and it's not meant to be the main firing mode like it has been since launch. So, previously, you shoot the hemlock in semi-auto mode. You just go ba really fast as long as you click quickly. They've pretty much dumpstered that, so now if you want to single fire it, you can, but it's a very slow rate of fire. It's a little bit disappointing to a lot of people who very much like the hemlock's balance beforehand, but I understand why Respawn is doing it. I don't agree with their choice, but that's okay. I'm allowed to disagree, and they're not wrong for doing what they did. So we'll see how this gun turns out. It might just be that the regular burst fire mode is super strong. Only way to tell is to play the game and find out. Next up, we have some minor Mozambique buffs, but honestly, that's fine. The pattern spread has been decreased, so your 3 bolts when you fire the weapon are going to stay a little closer together. So it's going to be a little easier for you to get all those shots on target or to miss completely. So a little more risk-reward there, I guess, but I think it's going to be more in favor of the reward rather than the risk. You're also going to have a faster resetting of the gun from recoil, so it's going to be a whole lot easier for you to track your target if you're staying aimed down sights. For most characters in Legends, it's not a big deal, but for controller players in general, and for Gibraltar players especially, being able to stay aimed down sights and keep a clearer sight on target is very, very important. Finally, we have some L-Star buffs. So there's been a substantial reduction to horizontal recoil, so this thing should be more useful at more than like 5 meters away, so that's great. You're also getting a digital threat optic by default. Again, that's great. Damage has gone down by 2 points per bowling ball or whatever it is that you shoot with that thing, but that's honestly not a big deal. I think the recoil change is going to mean you're going to hit a higher average of shots in a big way, so your overall, effective DPS or effective times to kill are still going to significantly be decreased, which is a good thing. So I'm interested to maybe pick an L-Star up again and see how it works, but then again, this map is gigantic, and if the effective range has gone from 5 meters to like 20, that's still really close, and it's closer than you're going to find a lot of engagements on this map unless you're super duper aggressive and playing with a really, really intelligent and smart and fast and, other words team. So, I don't know. I'm purely speculating on this. I've not even seen an L-Star on this map in the 3 days I've been playing so far, so I have no idea what to think of this thing, but gotta wait and see, and I'm gonna be trying it for sure. If you guys have tried it, you guys have an opinion on it, let me know in the comment section down below what you think, and I don't know. I'm up in the air on this one. Let's see how it works. Anyways, everyone, in terms of major balance updates and meta changes and things of that sort, that will do it for today. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you learned something new. If you guys want to support the channel, I have a Patreon. I have some t-shirts for sale up until this Friday, so just a couple of days away. If you're watching this video in the future, they're gone, and I'm sorry. But yeah, those are all very, very cool things. You guys should check them out. Follow me on Twitter, Twitch. I stream a couple days a week, sometimes more, sometimes less. I still work full time. This is all a side thing, but I'm available many places on the internet, and I'm be happy to talk to you and hang out with you and play some games. So let's do that. I'll see you all on the internet very, very soon. Take care.